All right, welcome back, everyone. So, you're probably here because of all the talk about Manchester United's midfield after that draw with Liverpool, huh?
Yeah, that match at Anfield.
Yeah, Anfield. It
Yeah.
wasn't just any draw, though, right? It felt
Yeah,
like maybe something's changing.
definitely felt different.
So to get into it, we're diving into this sports analysis piece that's making the rounds. It's arguing that there's this specific midfield duo who could be the key to, well, to everything for Man U.
It really does focus on the control in midfield, how they dominated that area of the pitch. This piece, it's saying that Kabi Manu and Manuel Ugarte, that pairing, might just be what they've been missing.
Hold on. Manu and Ugarte, they're, what, barely old enough to, I don't know, have a driver's license?
Well, they're young, that's for sure.
I mean, Casemiro and Eriksson, those are
Yeah.
veterans. Are we really talking about replacing that kind of experience? I know their combined age is, what, 42 for both of them together?
It's not just about age, though. It's more about what they bring to the game, their style of play, and this piece really digs into their performance at Anfield. And honestly, it's convincing stuff. Look at Ugarte. It wasn't just the tackles he was winning. He was shutting down Liverpool's attacks before they even started. Like, there's this one moment where he completely reads Trent Alexander-Arnold trying to set up Salah. It's textbook defense.
Okay, but that's what one good play. I need a bit more than that to be sold on this whole thing. What about Manu then? What's all the excitement about with him?
Mainu, he was just rock solid. Under pressure, he never lost his cool. And I'm not just talking about basic passes here. He was threading those passes through tiny spaces, kept possession going, even when Liverpool was all over them. You remember that sequence where he gets the ball surrounded by like 3 Liverpool players?
I vaguely remember it.
Well, he controls it, turns, and picks out this perfect pass to Bruno Fernandes, who then sets up a counterattack.
Mhm.
Just beautiful.
That does sound pretty impressive, yeah. But haven't they played together before? And it wasn't always this smooth, right?
Oh, for sure.
What about those losses? Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, Wolves. They weren't exactly pulling off these amazing moves in those games.
You're right. They haven't always clicked. The analysis does talk about those matches where it didn't work as well. But it also points out that in that Tottenham game, Mainu got a red card early on. And when you're down a man against a team like Tottenham, well, it changes everything.
Ah, so there were other factors. It wasn't just them being, I don't know, inconsistent or something. Okay, that makes more sense. But still benching Casemiro and Eriksson, these guys are practically legends.
And that's where things get really interesting. This analysis actually suggests that, look, while those guys have done amazing things, maybe they just aren't a perfect fit for the Premier League anymore. That pace is relentless, and maybe, well, maybe their age is starting to show. And it goes even further. It actually says Manchester United should think about selling Casemiro if a good offer comes along in the transfer window.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Sell Casemiro. Some fans are going to lose it if they hear that. But I'll admit, if Manu and Ugarte can actually play like that consistently, it does make you wonder.
That's exactly the question this piece is raising, right? Is Manchester United going to hold on to these big names for sentimental reasons, or will they actually look towards the future, even if it means making tough decisions? It's not just about one midfield pair, it's about the long-term plan.
Yeah, you've got me thinking now, if they do go all in on this youth movement, who else fits into that midfield? Didn't the article mention a couple other players from the academy?
Yeah, they briefly mention Toby Collier and Dan Gore. It basically argues that instead of relying on the veterans when Mainu and Ugarte need a break, give these younger guys a chance. See what they can do.
It's risky.
It's risky, but it could really pay off, in the long run.
All right, so we've got this potential midfield revolution brewing at Old Trafford. But before we go too crazy with all the possibilities, let's take a breath and just make sure we're all clear on what this is really about. We're saying this analysis is about way more than just that one draw against Liverpool, right?
Absolutely. It's about how football's changing. It's about when to, embrace those changes and about finding that balance between experience, these veterans, and the potential of young players.
And all of this started with a single match at Anfield. Incredible how one game can lead to such a huge debate.
That's football for you. Sometimes one match just reveals everything, the strengths, the weaknesses. And, this deep dive, we've only just started to explore what this could all mean for Manchester United.
So we're talking about a potential shift then, a changing of the guard in Manchester United's midfield.
Yeah.
But doesn't this happen all the time in sports, right? You
Yeah.
always have this tension between the veterans and the up-and-comers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always a battle. Think about basketball.
Yeah, yeah, good example.
You've got teams built around these veterans, LeBron James, guys like that, and it's all about experience leadership.
Right, right.
But eventually, even those guys, even the legends, they start to, well, they slow down a bit. And that's when you see the next generation coming in, getting their chance. But it's tough for any team in any sport to manage that transition the right way.
So what you're saying is this analysis is like a warning to Manchester United. Like, don't make the same mistake other teams have made, holding on to these aging stars for too long, and you end up missing out on developing your young talent.
Exactly. It's easy to let sentimentality get in the way. This analysis is arguing that, yeah, Casemiro and Eriksen, they've been fantastic, but if they're not performing at the level the Premier League demands, well, tough decisions need to be made.
You've got to prioritize the future over the past. That's a hard thing for some fans to swallow, I bet. Letting go of players who have meant so much to the club.
It's a balancing act, for sure, for any manager. But sometimes you have to be ruthless for the good of the club. And this analysis really makes a strong argument that Manu and Ugarte, they could be the future, a more dynamic midfield, one that can actually last.
It's like we're watching it happen.
Yeah.
This changing of the guard right in front of us. And it's not just about the players themselves, it's about how the game's changing too, right?
100%. The Premier League, it's just faster, more demanding than ever before. This analysis points out that Manu and Ugarte, their style, it just suits this intensity better.
Yeah.
They've got that young energy, that drive to cover every inch of the pitch. Remember that sequence we talked about, Mascherano dancing around those Liverpool players?
Yeah.
That quick thinking, the agility, that's what makes a difference now.
Okay, so let's say.
Well, it suggests a few things. First, seriously, consider selling Casemiro if a good offer comes in. Take that money and invest it in, well, in more young talent. Maybe bring in a few more players who fit this new style.
Whoa, that's a big move. Selling Casemiro. That's a statement.
It would be. It would be saying we are committed to building for the future. And the second thing, give Manu and Ugarte consistent playing time. Let them develop that partnership. Let it become the core of the midfield.
What about those other academy players, the ones we mentioned before, Collier and Gore? Where do they fit in all of this?
The analysis sees them as backup. Instead of turning to the older guys when Manu and Ugarte need a rest, give these younger guys a shot. It's high risk, high reward for sure.
Yeah, high risk, high reward.
But it could really pay off big time in the long run.
So Manchester United, they're at a crossroads here. Stick with the familiar or take this leap of faith and really go for it with these young stars. Big decision, not just for the team, but for the whole club.
Huge implications. Everyone's going to be watching. The fans, the media, other clubs. The pressure is on.
You know, it's funny how we started talking about just one match analysis, and now we're talking about the whole future of football, how it's changing. Almost like a case study in how clubs have to adapt if they want to stay on top.
That's the beauty of analyzing these things, these individual moments, and then zooming out. You start to see these bigger trends, things you might have missed otherwise.
Before we move on, I want to go back to something you said before about how this battle between experience and youth, it plays out in other sports too. You mentioned basketball, but are there other examples?
Yeah, tons of them, like baseball.
Oh yeah, baseball's a good one.
You've got guys like Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, these legends. But even for them, there comes a point when maybe they're not what they used to be, and teams have to make these really tough calls to keep them around because of what they've done, or move on to let the younger guys get a chance. It's this constant cycle.
And for fans, that must be tough to watch, right? You're attached to these players, you've seen them do amazing things, and then they're replaced. Even if it's by someone who's really talented, it's still emotional.
It's a natural progression, though, not just in sports, but in everything, right?
What about other sports? Any other examples that jump out?
Well, tennis.
Oh yeah, tennis. That's changing a lot too.
You've got these young players, Carlos Alcaraz, Iga Swiatek, and they're challenging the old guard, the Djokovics, the Serena Williamses of the world. It's a generational shift, really exciting to watch.
It is. It's amazing to see how this same dynamic plays out across all these different sports. Like there's this underlying theme that connects them all.
And it makes you think this whole Manchester United thing, it's just one small part of this much bigger trend that's happening everywhere. It's about understanding that change is going to happen no matter what. And sometimes the best thing you can do is embrace it.
That's a really good point. It seems like we've gone on quite a journey with this deep dive.
Yeah.
Started with this analysis of one match, and now we're talking about how sports are evolving
Yeah.
and the balance between the old guard and the new generation.
It's amazing what you can find when you dig a little deeper into these things.
And I think that's what makes these deep dives so interesting. We start with something specific, but we end up finding these universal truths that apply to everything.
It's the power of storytelling and analysis, taking these individual moments and using them to understand the bigger picture.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Ah,
Wow, so much to think about. We've covered a lot of ground here. We started with that tactical analysis of that one match, the draw between Man U and Liverpool. And we ended up talking about all these connections with other sports and change and evolution. It's kind of amazing.
it really is. Who knew a single football match could spark this kind of conversation, right?
Right, so before we wrap things up, I want to bring it back to our listener for a sec. What's the big takeaway here? What should they be thinking about as they, go about their day?
That's a good question. I think at its core, it's about perspective. How do we look at change? Not just in sports, but in everything we do. Is it something that scares us or something we welcome? Do we hold on to what we know, or are we brave enough to try new things, step outside that comfort zone?
That's deep. I like that. And it goes back to what we've been saying about Manchester United, right?
Yeah.
Are they willing to embrace change, to move on from those big names they relied on and really give these young players a chance?
Exactly. That decision, how willing they are to adapt, to evolve, it can make all the difference. Sometimes the toughest choices, those are the ones that lead to the biggest growth.
It's true. I mean, there's that saying, the only constant is change.
Right.
Right. Whether it's football or our jobs or our lives in general, we got to learn to deal with it, to adapt.
Absolutely. And maybe, some of what we've talked about today with Manchester United, maybe that can even apply to other parts of our lives too.
I love that about these conversations. We start with one specific thing, and then, bam, we find these truths that apply to everything.
It's the magic of storytelling, of analysis. You look at something small and you end up understanding, I don't know, the whole world a little bit better.
Well said. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring. You never know what you'll discover.
And remember, whether you're a massive Man U fan or just, someone who enjoys the sport, the most important thing is to stay curious,